Hello, I'm Kate Anderson with Campus Reform. Southeastern Legal Foundation issued a series of demand letters to 12 schools earlier this month regarding policies that placed a restraint on students' First Amendment rights on campus. We have a student today with us from Miami University in Ohio, and she's talking to us today about the demand letter that was sent to her school regarding a policy that prevents students from being able to table on campus. Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Charlotte, can you tell us a little bit about this policy and why the demand letter describes it as vague and overbroad, and why it might censor students?
Yeah, so one of the policies that they're specifically talking about is the use of university property policy. And this policy doesn't really make the distinction, or it's not clear when students are allowed to use university property. Obviously, it's a public campus, and so we should be allowed to use it within reason whenever we want. But some of the times that they give, Southeastern Legal Foundation has said was undue burden on students. So, and it's not clear whether that's a 14-day window of class days, like business days, or just 14 days in general. One of the other policies is about passing out flyers on campus. Ohio and constitutional law, says that you can pass out flyers whenever you want, but for some circumstances, and again, it's not entirely clear to me what circumstances students are required to get permission to do that. And so those are some of the reasons that were cited in the demand letter.
Now, do you think there's a pattern of this at your school, not even just with the flyers or with tabling, that the university is trying to censor particular content or particular types of speech, that they're not interested in having certain people speak about certain topics, they only want other people speaking about other topics? Has that kind of been the experience on school, or is this more of a unique instance?
I would say that overall Miami is fairly good about having a good marketplace of ideas, if you will. Overall, free speech is fairly well protected on campus. So I'm hoping that this is just a one-off mistake, policies that weren't fully revised, to fit Ohio law. But I will say that administration is oftentimes not very open to discussion. So, we'll see where this goes, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was a more intentional thing to leave it open, because all it takes is one administrative member taking advantage of a vague policy. So I was just going to reiterate, while it could be unintentional, all it takes is one faculty member or administrative assistant to, take the policy and run with it and censor students.
And there was a bit in that demand letter talking about the Supreme Court embracing the founders' hatred of censorship and how important that was to the founding of our country. And we see this a lot on college campuses, not just on your campus, but that's why there were 12 demand letters sent and not just one. How important do you think it is that students are allowed to express their ideas freely, that they don't have to question whether the content is acceptable to be put out there, that they should be able to say what they want to say, to talk about what they want to talk about, especially on a university that's supposed to be, from my understanding, even as a college student just not too long ago, that this is the place where you're supposed to learn. This is the place where you're supposed to express yourself and your ideas. Do you think that's something that students all across the country should be really concerned about?
I think it's something that everyone should take a stand on. Even if it's a minor policy, I think it's very important that students stand up when they do see something that is not in line with the Constitution, because it is so important that a university be the place where we can learn and discuss ideas without fear of censorship. And that goes for any group on campus. I'm personally trying to make this a nonpartisan issue on my campus. So while I'm conservative and a lot of my peers are conservative, there are a lot of groups on campus that I do disagree with, but I think that it's so important for every group on campus and every student to stand up and say, no, these policies violate our First Amendment rights, and we want to make sure that everyone has the equal opportunity to speak up.
So my last question to you is, has there been any feedback, whether that be with the students or the university, where the students even made aware of this policy and the fact that there was a demand letter? Is that something that's being talked about on campus? Has the university mentioned it?
No, so as far as I know, the only communication that's gone out to students has been from me personally. So I've notified the groups that I'm in. I'm planning to reach out to a few more groups to get some more support for it. I personally reached out to one of our legal administrators this morning and asked for a meeting. She hasn't gotten back to me on that yet, but I'm hoping that we can meet and discuss and see how we can make sure that this gets out to students or that the policies get revised. But so far as I know, the only communication that's gone out to students has been from myself.
And I guess this brings me to a follow-up question that I was just thinking of as you were talking. Do you think students in general are aware of these policies? Are they aware that this policy would restrict them? Because from what it sounds like, there's just not, unless you are purposefully looking at these policies and taking the time to do so, a lot of these kids wouldn't know. They wouldn't know that this is something that's happening until it affects them.
Yeah, I don't think most students would know. Some students who are involved in tabling and student organizations may be more aware of these policies, but the ones that restrict the freedom of speech, I think people don't realize that that's what they're doing. They just find them very confusing, and so they have to jump through all the hoops. But I would say that the vast majority of students on campus are probably not even aware that these policies exist, and certainly are not aware of the limitations that they may place on their own free speech.
And the couple students that you have talked to, what has been their reaction? Are they surprised? Are they concerned? How have they reacted to that?
There's definitely been concern. I'm planning to meet with a few of them and go over further details on how we can spread the word and get more students involved. But definitely surprised, but mostly concerned that this could be a policy that's taken advantage of by the university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to you about this today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.